Doc, I'm delighted to have this chat with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for calling me for this podcast.
So, I want to start from the beginning. Where did you grow up?
The first few years of my life, till my third standard, were spent in a small town called Devlali, which is next to Nasik in Maharashtra.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born in Bombay, but I was brought up there, and I was brought up in a Hindi medium school.
Mm-hmm.
I had some teachers who taught me Hindi medium, and then in my fourth, I came back to Bangalore because my father got an appointment here as a manager here, and I was put in a convent school over here in Bishop Cotton Boys School. So my first formative years were in Devlali, and then I came to Bangalore.
Interesting. So you do you attend the reunions at the Bishop Cotton School and all of that? They have a huge gang, right?
Yeah, they have a huge gang, but what's happened over a period of time, I've lost touch with most of them, and I don't have much of a connection. I have few connections with my old classmates, but not as many as they should be.
Yeah, so you're in the news all the time, I'm sure. They're keeping up with you, even if you're not keeping up with them.
I just hope so that I'm able to inspire as many people, including my classmates.
Yes. And then how did you start losing your vision?
In 8th standard, when I was in 8th standard, I was around 13 or 14 years old at that time, I suffered from a disease called macular degeneration, which is a part of a larger family of diseases called RP or retinitis pigmentosa, where the rods and cones of the eyes keep deteriorating and they keep dying. So gradually in my 8th standard, I found that I'd lost nearly 60 to 70% of my vision. So that was the time when the entire world started collapsing around me, and I was an excellent student. I used to always top my class. I was playing for these cricket middle school team. I was a voracious reader, and then suddenly the world starts collapsing around you, and then the general question which comes to your mind is why? Why did this God do this to me? And I was not mature at that particular point of time, and I also used to keep asking myself why did God do this to me? And one thing which I've realized over a period of time, to be mature, you should never ask why in times of difficulty, because why will give you only loopy answers. Why should the greatest propagator of non-violence, Mahatma Gandhi, die such a violent death? Why should the greatest apostle of love, Jesus, be crucified? There are no answers for that. So if you ask why in such times, you find that life becomes more difficult. And I think so, I did that mistake. But I had a support system around me, like my father, my grandfather, my school, which helped me come out of that entire episode.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I so much as stab my toe against the wall and I'm, all skulking all the day, I mean, you must have been a teenager back then, right?
Yeah.
How did you cope with that? I mean, I would personally have a lot of resent.
Yeah, I had a lot of resentment. But there were one or two episodes which had a big impact on my life. The most common episode which I've spoken about a lot about is about my dad, who, when I was crying in my room, I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder, and he knew that I was very resentful. He knew that I was very upset.
Bitter,
Yeah, and I was very bitter, and he knew that my dreams were seeming to be shattered, and he told me at that time, don't keep your dreams in your eyes, they'll wash away as tears. Keep them in your heart so that each heartbeat reminds you to achieve those dreams. And that was big turning moment. Another turning moment which I generally haven't spoken much about is when I was in my school, I was sitting one day in class and I was listening to the students playing outside. I lost my eyesight and I was listening to them playing cricket, and I'm feeling very bitter and very upset about it. And my tea break was ending at around 11:10, and at 11 o'clock, my biology teacher, one Mr. Alexander Nainen, he came to the class and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, Rajdeep, I read a poem yesterday which I want to read out to you. When he read that poem to me, half of my dismay and my disgust was lifted. I'll tell you the poem and then I'll tell you the author and what it is. The poem goes like this. I learn as the years roll by and leave the past behind. that much I had counted as sorrows proved that God was kind, that many a rose I longed for had a thorn of pain, that many a rugged bypath led to fields of ripened grain. The clouds that cover the sunshine can never banish the sun. Earth shines brighter when the weary rain is done. We must stand in the darkest shadows to see the brightest light, for it's from life's worst obstacles that comes the greatest strength to fight. For it's from life's worst obstacles that comes the greatest strength to fight. I made him read that poem at least 2-3 times because I thought the poem was written just for me. The clouds that cover the sunshine cannot banish the sun. Might be my eyes have been covered with clouds, but it doesn't take away from my personality.
Yeah.
Every rugged bypath leads to fields of ripened grain. So might be the path is difficult now, but it will lead to something more exciting at a later point of time.
Yeah.
Every rose has a thorn of pain. So everything in that poem seemed to be written for me, and the way in which my teacher transferred that poem to me with so much of affection and love, I think so half of my resentment and bitterness was lifted at that particular point of time. The poem is actually a poem written by John Cardinal Newman. It's called Life's Lessons. I later on found out that.
Where was this? In Bangalore? Or?
In Bangalore. I was in Bangalore, right?
Okay.
I lost my eyesight in my 8th standard. As I told you, I came back to
And
Bangalore
this
in my
was in
4th.
which standard?
I was in my 8th standard.
This poem it was told to you by a teacher in...
By the teacher when I was in my 8th standard.
Okay.
But I don't know, the poem was not in the syllabus or anything like that. Huh?
Well, I mean, teachers can make such an impression on us.
Very
right?
big impression.
Are you still, in touch with the...
He passed away a
Oh,
few years
sorry.
back, but I was in touch with him, and he was always a very, very big source of help and kindness to me.
Wow. So, Doc, for me, I got to know you from Toastmasters, right?
Yes, yes.
The first time I heard you at the club, our Bangalore Toastmasters club, I was like, I want this dude to be my mentor, okay? I know how the mentorship works, but I rallied around. I was like, if I become a member, this is the person that I want to mentor me. So, how did you come to know about Toastmasters?
I have a friend who is also blind. His name is Justin Phillips.
Okay.
He was a member of the Bangalore Toastmaster Club, and he used to always tell me, why don't you try it, join Toastmasters? But I never got the chance. I was so busy in my career when I started working in Jain College. But then after settling down in Jain College, I was working there for nearly 10 years. Somewhere in 2007, I found that I wasn't making as many friends outside. So I didn't join Toastmasters for communication or leadership. I joined it as a social outlet.
Okay.
I
Fair
thought
enough.
might be it will be some sort of a social outlet where I can meet people, where I can understand people.
Right.
So, and luckily for me, the Bangalore Toastmasters Club was very close to my house in Shantinagar. And those days, Bangalore Toastmasters was in St. Joseph's Arts and Science College, which is just walking distance from my house.
Oh, okay.
So I just walked into the club one day, and I felt so much like home. I felt like as if I'm got into, like fish gets into water, isn't it? And I found that this was exactly the place where I wanted to be, where I could speak, where I could express my friendship, camaraderie, and that's how I got into Toastmasters.
So this Justin Phillip, does he come down to our club?
No, I don't think so. He comes down now. He started a Rotary club of his own, Rotary Club Abilities. But he was a president of our club also.
Yeah.
He was an ex-president of our club. He was a secretary. He was during the early days. I joined in 2007, and unfortunately, by around that time, he had started leaving the club.
Oh, okay.
He had, I think so. He had joined around 4 or 5 years back. Yeah.
Okay. And how was your journey to becoming a distinguished Toastmaster? And how long did you take?
I loved speaking, and generally in the older manuals of Toastmasters, we had 40 speeches. In order to become a DTM, you had to do the CC 10 speeches.
Okay.
Then you had to choose any 6 advanced manuals, which had 5 speeches each. So if you do 10 of those out of 2 manuals, you get an Advanced Communicator Bronze. Then again 10, you become Advanced Communicator Silver. Then Advanced Communicator Gold. Besides that, you also had to do competent leadership where you had to take a small task, you had to do an ALB, advanced leader bronze and advanced leader silver, where you have to take up leadership positions in the district. I was the area governor at some time, I was the president of the club.
Yeah.
So when I completed all this, it took 4.5 years. So by the time it was the end of 2011, I was through as a distinguished Toastmaster because I gave approximately one speech per month.
Oh, wow.
So
That should be a record in itself, no?
No. There were people who have done it faster, but I did it in a normal pace so that we don't lose the quality of the...
Right. and so in Pathways also we have this to become a leader and all of that?
I don't know. I have not gone so much into detail of the pathways because I'm a little confused about the whole...
Most of us are.
But that it was much simpler.
Yeah.
Much simpler.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, now life can be hard, right?
Yeah.
And I like to say life can also be unfair. I don't know why people don't want to believe that statement, or they get very defensive about that when we say life is unfair, as though we are challenging them, or, but it's a fact, right? Not.
What I feel is that the root of all sorrow and unhappiness is non-acceptance. When you don't accept what life is, that's when the sorrow comes. For example, let's say you're going on a roller coaster ride. If you accept that you're going to get scared, it becomes adventure and thrill. But if you don't accept it, even if you go to a roller coaster, it might give you the most harrowing experience of your life. If you go to a house of ghosts, in an amusement park, you know that you're going to get scared. And you accept the fact that scary thing is there, so you might take it as fun. But if you get haunted in a house, then you'll feel terribly upset. So I think the whole problem is of non-acceptance. When we don't accept what life gives us, we start treating life as unfair. So the simplest thing is accept what comes, because you have no control over what's going to happen in your life. You might have an unfair road, and life is like that, you might have a bumpy road sometimes, you might hit your head against the roof sometimes it may be smooth. But that's, I think, so the beauty of life, that it takes those twists and turns to make your life easy. Imagine if your life had no unfairness, you had everything what you wanted, you would have boring. Imagine seeing a movie with
not
only...
necessarily.
Huh?
This is like saying that Taylor Swift has got problems. I mean, people would swap their problems for Taylor Swift. Like Taylor Swift is always dating someone else, right? And then she breaks up with them, and then she writes songs on that, or on the breakup, right? On a broken heart, and then she rakes in millions, right? On every song. So it's like saying Taylor Swift has got problems. Yeah, sure, she's got a lot of heartbreaks, but
everybody
it's
has. It's not that only Taylor Swift has.
Yeah,
I think so. She's taking advantage of a problem. That's what we don't do. We sit on the problems and we say, even you, if you take each problem as a learning lesson, then there won't be any problems at all, right? We fight with our problem. We say, why did this happen to me? Now it happened. You can't do anything else about it, right? What's the maximum you can do? I always say, there are two principles which you have to learn in life. It's change the changeable and accept the unchangeable. Or change the changeable and accept the... Is there something which you can change? Like, let's say your landlord is going to take you out from your house because you haven't paid your rent.
You had to give that apology.
You have a problem with your house, okay. The maximum you can do is
For the record, I have always paid my rent on time.
I'm just giving you an example, please. In case your landlord wants you to vacate the house because he wants to use it, and you might find it very unfair. So there are only two options available. Either you change the changeable or accept the unchangeable. You can go and convince him, talk to him. That's change it. But if he doesn't get convinced, what's the other option for you? Accept the unchangeable, right? Go and see another house. What else can you do? You can't do anything else, right? These are the only two options available for you at that particular point of time. Correct? The problem with life is that we try and change the unchangeable and accept the changeable.
Yeah, I mean that's a very nice, sweet way to put it. But I don't know. There are times when we have this Gallup Strength Survey at work. Okay, so we had to fill that survey, and it shows, and that you can take only once a lifetime. Okay, and regardless of what organization that you work for, that strength surveys remain the same for individuals, right? It's a very renowned, very respectable. Right. You've heard of it, right? So as per that survey, one of my top strengths, okay, is positivity. But I mean, for me, positivity doesn't mean to like sugarcoat everything or to see everything with rose, glasses. So I don't know, dog. I mean,
No, I'm not telling you to sugarcoat. Even if it's the bitter truth, what I'm telling you is, if you're eating something bitter, accept that you have to eat it.
oh
I'm not telling
yeah, sure. Later
Accept,
you
and
can.
you know that you're going through a difficult, you know. But there is one thing which you have to remember. I don't know, I'm going to tell you a story now.
Okay.
There was this king who wanted the wisdom of all the great saints to be put in a book. So he asked all the wise men of his kingdom to put that wisdom in that particular book. So all these wise men sat for a year and a half and they put that wisdom into a book and they gave it to him. And he read it and he said, this is too voluminous. I want it to be reduced to one chapter.
Okay.
So they again sat for a year and they did all the research and they edited it and made it into one chapter. That chapter ran into some 100 pages. So he said, no, this is also too voluminous. Make it into one page.
Okay. I'm liking this king already.
And he made it into one page. After he read the page, he said, there's too much of density in it. Make it into one paragraph.
Okay.
So he wrote it into one paragraph. After reading the paragraph, he said, no, okay, I want just one line which contains the wisdom of all the ages. They sat, these wise men, and they came out with one beautiful line which condenses the wisdom of the ages, which says, this too shall pass. Whether it's happiness, whether it's sadness, nothing's going to remain forever. This too shall pass. You might have had so many challenges when you were young, right? But you survived all that, right? You have passed all that, right? If you have survived all that, that has passed. Now you laugh over those problems. You might have had a breakup, you might have had a difficult childhood, you might have got beaten by a school teacher, you might have got worried by somebody, correct?
You don't have to list all this.
Correct, but I'm just telling you. But you have faced all that, and all that passes at some point of time or the other, isn't it? So everything passes. It doesn't have to be, it will never remain the same. What will never remain the same?
I have a very sadistic take on this too shall pass statement. Okay, so I have modified it slightly, and when I'm really depressed, I'm like, this too shall pass, or this too shall fail.
Yeah, whether it fails or I'm not telling you, it may fail at that particular point of time. You might be feeling, your attempt might fail, but the event will pass at some point of time. What has caused the sorrow will pass. What you tried to rectify it is trying to interfere. It might fail or might succeed. But the event doesn't remain forever, right? What has caused the sorrow will definitely pass. So what I'm trying to tell you is, as you might have tried, somebody failed in a CA exam and then he might try again. He might fail, but the memory of the CA exam will pass as soon as he's finished. It becomes only a memory, right? Who knows? It might be a learning experience for him for something at the end. We don't know, right? But everything passes by. Every event goes by. There's nothing which remains permanent, that one person is depressed for the whole life or one person's failure. And I remember this person called Suchiro Honda who founded Honda. He had so many failures in his life, and he used to always say, the greatest lesson I've learned in life is that failure is an event, it is not a person.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Failure is an event, it's not a...
I mean, we take failure to our heart.
Yeah, and you think you are the failure. But that's only an event which passes by.
Well, yes, I mean, what I'm thinking of, Doc, is, I mean, so some people, their struggles, they are real, and they
Everybody struggles. See, you might think that...
No, let me, and
Okay,
real,
okay.
and also, they are non-stop, right, like, I mean, there's no end to their struggles, and most of those struggles are, say, unnecessary. Okay, so I'm okay with struggling in life, but I am strictly against unnecessary struggle. So if you take, like, say, a rural farmer, for example, okay, because I've recently got a hang of rural India. So what about their struggles? I'm sure nobody from
I'll tell you what happens. There is a scientific principle behind this. Okay. Now listen here, one.
And farmers who commit suicide itself, right?
Yeah, I can understand. Let me tell you the psychological, why they have unless struggle. There has been a lot of psychological research which has been done, okay? Now you have to understand that there are two parts of your mind. One is called the conscious mind, one is called the subconscious
The
mind. You know about
prefrontal
it.
cortex and
Huh?
the prefrontal.
Yeah, the subconscious mind is the one which is nearly 7/8 or 8/9 of your mind. That one which makes your hair grow, your heart beats. And the subconscious mind, once it decides something, it achieves it. Psychologists have proved it over a period of time. It gently gets what it wants. Now, the essential characteristic of the subconscious mind is that it cannot understand the difference between positive and negative emotions. It can only understand the difference between deep and shallow emotions.
Yeah.
And when it feels something is deep, it programs you to get those deep emotions repeated again and again in your life. So suppose you've gone through a hurt, let's say a broken relationship, and you felt very deeply about it. Be sure that that breakup is going to again happen in your life, because your subconscious mind has programmed itself that this person has understood and likes this deep emotion of being broken up.
Yeah, and people
Let's
fall into
let's say a
that.
person gets sick, he gets a headache, and he feels very deeply, he talks about it continuously to 100 other people. Be sure the next headache is on the way. So all subconscious patterns are patterns because you are associating deep emotions with it. You've failed in an exam and you've felt so deeply about it. You've talked about it. And be sure, because your subconscious mind has engraved that pattern in itself, it will try and repeat those patterns again and again. So the only solution to come out of this never-ending loop is, one, associate all your negative emotions a little shallowly. Think of it at one time, cry about it, forget about it. Correct? Talk about it only to 3 or 4 people. Don't talk about it to the whole world, 100 people. You have a headache, you talk about it to 100 people, they get a headache. Correct? Second thing is, all positive emotions, take it to your heart. All negative emotions, take it to your head. Talk about your positive emotions to 100 people. Talk about your negative emotions to 4 or 5 people. Break the pattern, because if you don't break that pattern, then your life will be an endless struggle. You'll keep on repeating the same patterns again and so at least be conscious. That's why all our religions and traditions have so much emphasis on celebration. Whether it's Deepavali, when a demon is killed, there's celebration. When somebody is born, because the religious sages understood that the more a person associates positive emotions, those positive emotions get repeated in his life again and so celebrate your birthday, celebrate a small thing in life. Do those celebrations so that the positive emotions become deep and the negative emotions become shallower and shallow.
Okay. So, I mean, I read a lot of these motivational things and podcasts and other stuff on the internet. And one of the comments there, it said, typical Western view. So, what I'm trying to say is, for us, of the talk that we are having, and what you're telling me about motivation and not taking it too hard, I think that applies mostly to people who have food, clothing, and shelter sorted out for them, right? I mean,
no, I don't think so. I think so. It's everything sorted out. Means anything. I've seen people who are beggars who are singing, and they associate positive. I think so. The whole concept is that we try and associate that there is only happiness to people who are rich.
That's not totally wrong.
But what? Yeah, that's what I'm trying. That's what you're trying to tell me, right? Food, clothing, and shelter.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have your bare necessities in place, you won't, like, if every day is a challenge, you will hardly think of
Absolutely.
motivation.
But for every person who has a challenge, there are only 2 things which you can do. I've seen people in the villages, and I've gone there when I've my NSS. I've seen 2 houses, both of them earning the same money, and one house is brimming with happiness and one house is not brimming with happiness. It's the way you look at it, right? Correct? You can always look at the glass half full or half empty. It's not that only people who are struggling for their food are unhappy. They also have their lighter moments in life. Who's not poor in this world?
Oh, come on, now let's not say.
Who's not poor? Everybody comes with their own
Now,
difficulties.
given
Everybody comes
how
with their own
income
ways.
inequality has never been the worst in
Correct.
human
It is
history,
there.
right?
Means every person has a way of looking at it. Now you can look at it and that way and say, oh, I'm struggling, and make a mess of the whole thing. Or look at what has God has given you. You're still alive. Correct?
However
That's
much
true.
I adore you, I'm not convinced, okay?
Never mind, never mind. It's
Yeah.
absolutely. Everybody has their own point of view.
Yeah.
But I feel that what you can do is make your life positive first. Then look at somebody else's life. Because if you are not happy yourself, you can't give happiness to anybody else. If you're not overflowing with love and happiness, what will you be able to give somebody else? So let's look at our problems, solve our daily problems, and I think so the podcast listeners will all be people who have food and shelter. Correct?
Well, yeah, I'm hoping so.
Yeah.
I mean, I would
Right.
love for others also to, if they get a chance, right?
Yeah.
Thanks to the wonders of technology and internet.
Yeah.
So that basically was the last thing that I wanted to ask, Doc, and I didn't even put forth the question, but you totally answered totally answered it without me even framing the question.
Thanks.
So, any parting words?
Any
Don't give me those rhyming crap, okay? I love
no
it.
parting words. As long as we let us live life fully and let's take life as it is rather than screaming, struggling and shouting at you. You may scream, struggle, shout, but at the end of it, you have to accept it. So why not accept it now?
Shit happens.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Tam.
Doc.
It's been a
It was
pleasure.
such
It
a
was a
pleasure.
pleasure.
And
It
I
was
think
my
I
pleasure.
couldn't have found a better person than you, right?
Thank you so
To
much. Deepa, it
kickstart
was
it.
very interesting talking to you.
Thank
It's been a
you.
pleasure. My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.